Well, welcome to this session of Insider Secrets, and again, brought to you by My Core Intentions. Hey, before I get started today and introduce my guest, let me just make a quick commercial here for My Core Intentions. My Core Intentions is designed to deliver proven real estate strategies through personalized coaching to help facilitate a positive life change for each of our clients. We do this by delivering some proven real estate strategies through a personalized coaching program. So I'd like to hear from each one of you through an email or a phone call about your practical plan for personal growth and what your daily intentions are and how you plan to grow your business and stay physically fit as well as mentally fit. And how do we do that? Well, we would like to help you. We'd like to help you do that and think about things that matter most in your life. And here's a couple things that might even matter even a little bit more importantly in life. And I know that our guest today will agree with this too, but family and building relationships. So let me take a minute and introduce our guest. I'm joined today by a friend of mine and East Coast real estate investor, Danny Borrero. Danny, you want to say hi?
Hello, everyone.
How you doing? Danny's with USA Land Ventures. And not to give up all his surprises early, but Danny has a very interesting background and a great story of growth. He comes from the beeper and the cell phone industry of all places into the real estate investing business. He comes from a large family. He's got 7 brothers and sisters, and he got into real estate in Brooklyn. So we can only imagine what that was like for him. But Danny, how are you today? I'm glad you're here. And I'd like you, just to take a few minutes and why don't you tell people about your backstory and how you got involved in real estate?
Well, thank you, Mike, for inviting me and giving me the pleasure of being here. I'll start from the beginning. I essentially went back after college, back to my old neighborhood, which was Fort Greene, Brooklyn, and started my entrepreneur career there. That was back in 1985. My first business was a video store. I knew absolutely nothing about it, but I only knew that there was a necessity in the area for that type of a business, and I figured it out with the help of my dad. After that, the store grew to, at one point, we had approximately about 125,000 beeper subscribers. I'm not sure if your audience would even know what beepers were. That led to the cell phone business, and then that led to other things such as laundromats that we had. We had another 10 ATM machines that we were filling on a weekly basis, at least 2 to 3 times a week. But it all started with my dad. My father had a deli that he was there for 35 years. And essentially that's where we got acclimated to entrepreneurship, not only myself, but my brothers as well, working alongside my dad. During the course of those 20 something years after 1985, we kept accumulating properties within the same neighborhood that we had our businesses in, that I also grew up in. I was comfortable there. It was my comfort zone. But later on, as the numbers got unrealistic as far as price point in comparison to return on investment, it really made no sense to us. And we had to get out of our comfort zone. And that's when we started buying in Florida. We were probably moving approximately about 1,500 lots a month on some month occasions, about 1,000 lots wholesaling, and about another 400 to 500 lots on the retail side. But in 2008, that came to a dead halt, right, because of the recession. And in 2010, we got back into the flipping business, but not with land, more with structural. And we decided to go into Central Florida after spending a year of researching, essentially seeing where the municipalities were and who was encouraging growth. And that's how we decided in Central Florida. And so our philosophy is our fix and flips is our offensive money. And we still do land as well. But our fix and flips and the flipping of land is our offensive money. We take those profits after paying our taxes on a quarterly basis, which is our net profits, and we put those into long-term investments, which is cash flow, and that's our defensive position.
Okay, so, it sounds like you've got a lot of history around it and been doing it for a long time. The thing that I found interesting was that it sounds like entrepreneurship really runs deep in your family, always all the way back to your dad, right? coming
It
home,
does, yes.
coming here and opening his first business, right?
Right.
So it's always interesting. You know, the other thing you said is, you know, you opened a cellular store or a beeper store and you didn't even know what you were doing. And that's the
There's never been a business that I knew what I was doing before I got into it.
that's the great thing about being an entrepreneur, right? Is we kind of figure some of this stuff out along the way. We stumble, we fall, but the resilience that we could have as an entrepreneur just helps us to put it all back together, doesn't it?
Precisely.
So your focus is, it sounds like your focus is mainly on flips. Is that kind of what
No,
I'm
it
hearing?
all depends on where the market is. I mean, I don't have to tell you, Mike, how the market is constantly changing, right? And it's our job as entrepreneurs to educate ourselves so that we could position ourselves before that market changes. And if, you know, I tell people, especially new entrepreneurs, you know, I don't care what business you're in, you need to read. You need to constantly be reading. You need to constantly be around people that are in your business that are successful within the business and learn and watch. You know, I've learned more from other people's mistakes than I've learned from mine. And the reason I've been able to do that is because one, I've associated myself with individuals that are in the business longer than I was, in addition to watching other individuals that have been successful. Maybe they didn't want to talk to me. Maybe I didn't have the courage to ask them to talk to me. You know, when you're younger, you have a lot of setbacks as far as confidence in yourself. To, you know, am I qualified to even talk to this person that's so successful? You know, that's changed over the years, of course. But watching those that came before you and studying those that came before you, it avoids a lot of mistakes because they've all made them. Why should you make the same ones?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. You know, I really like what you had to say, Danny, about education. I'm an advocate about education, you know, whether it's a personalized coaching program or whether it's going back to school, you know, continually educate yourself. You know, people always say, why do you like real estate so much? I say, because I never can quit learning. There's always something new that we can learn. There's so many different areas of real estate, and there's so many things that can happen. You know, it's even like in the property management sector, right? In property management, how many different things can you learn along the way? You know, let me ask you this: do you have a portfolio today that you own property and you hold property?
So we manage all our own properties. We do everything in house. You know, I won't go into exact numbers, but we own a lot of doors in Central Florida. In Central Florida, our concept is we only invest. Well, I shouldn't say that. In Central Florida, we do a lot of flipping, right?
Okay.
But I won't keep single family homes. And there's a reason for it. They're much more difficult to manage from a distance. Now, there's other investors out there that would disagree with me. And that's fine, but that's what works for us. And if that works for them, there's no right or wrong to this. It's number one, what's your tolerance level? Two, what type of quality of life you want to have, and three, how much time and money do you want to spend managing?
Sure.
So what we concentrate is more on condos. And there's specific communities that we've centrally that we've narrowed down that we only buy in for multiple reasons. Primarily, one is the HOA management, any good, and what's the likelihood of them staying in place. And three, we look at to make sure that the reserves for capital improvements are up to par according to state regulations, because we don't want to get hit with any special assessments later on down the road because of poor management that happened 5 or 7 years ago. So yeah, you know, a lot of people say, yeah, but you have the HOA monthly payments, and I look at it like I'd have it anyway, because if I had a single family home, even if that renter is responsible for cutting that grass, what happens when they don't cut the grass? What happens when I get the violation from the county or the city? What about the roof? What about the sidewalk or the repaving of the driveway? What about the painting of the exterior? What about the landscaping? I'm not, you know, with condos, you don't worry about any of that other than the exception of the inside of the unit. And we do a pretty good job renovating units. I usually don't get, if I get one call or every 3 to 4 years per unit for repair, it's a lot because we've already done the major work, right? As far as renovations were concerned. And then what we do in New York is I only buy multifamily units. I stay under 6 units because I don't want to fall within the rent control, rent regulation guidelines between the city and the state laws. Sure. I don't particularly want the government telling me how to run my business. We do a lot of commercial. I do a lot of mixed-use properties here in New York where there's residential on top, commercial on the bottom. We actually even own a couple of garages. Those are probably the best money makers because you do absolutely nothing and just collect a check. So, we've been doing this since 1989 was the first property we purchased. We've kind of figured it out, and we have a wheel in place, and all we do is just oil the wheel.
So you manage all your own things. What are you finding right now in the way the market is and the economy is as far as tenants go and, keeping up with rents and things like that? And we're talking today, we're in the middle of the pandemic, right? Maybe hopefully getting to the end of this where the whole world's going to go back to work here soon. And we hope that everybody listening today is healthy and, going to stay healthy through this, and we can all move on with our lives. But what are you finding from a landlord perspective today, that how your tenants' behavior has become?
So we've seen absolutely no difference in our Florida rentals. They're great. Well, let me say this. I probably couldn't rent one of my own apartments. Our tenants go through an extremely rigorous process to get one of our apartments. And I've done that, and there's procedures we have in place, and our leases are very extensive. I make sure that the tenants read every single page, and if they don't ask me a question, then I know they didn't read it, and I insist that they do. Having said that, our tenants in Florida, I've seen absolutely no difference at all. The tenants in New York, and I got to tell you, every month I have 100% payment of rent. Between New York and New Jersey, we're at about 1.5% to 2% right now that are having difficulty paying. Of those numbers, there's only 2 people that I really don't believe are giving me legitimate reasons why. The others are, they're actually taking action to get ahead of the problem. They're communicating with us. We're not chasing them. They're telling us what's going on. They're providing us documentation. So, those people that we're willing to work with, we're going to figure this out together because they're working with us. They're communicating with us. It's the tenants that don't communicate and hide and stick their heads in the sand is the 2 that I'm having difficulty with.
Isn't that so important? The communication is such a big piece. Here's what's interesting. You talk about standards, you say you probably couldn't even qualify for one of your own rental properties. I kind of feel that way myself too sometimes. Right. One of the things I have in place is that if you don't have a 602 credit score, I just won't rent to you. And I don't waver from that. And the funny thing is that you have to keep those standards whole across the board. You have to treat everybody the same, because as soon as you start to vary, then you wind up in housing court with somebody screaming, oh, you know what, you treated somebody else different than me. So as long as you can prove that we keep those standards the same all the time. The other thing you talked about is lease. I think the lease is so critically important because, not only do I have that tenant or a prospective tenant read the lease, but I want to go through it line by line, or have my manager go through it line by line and have them initial in the margin. Hey, we talked about security deposits. We talked about repairs. We talked about terms, so that people know. I'll be getting ready here to do a Insider Secrets, which is my little 20-minute video that I do, and I'll post, and I'm going to go over a lease, just kind of explaining that process, because I think it's so critically important.
Well, Mike, one of the things that we do, because I'm very thorough with the lease, when a tenant notifies us that they're going to be vacating, the first thing and I always want that via email. And of course, then, I ensure that they also send it to me by regular mail. So when 99% of the time they send me an email telling me they're vacating, 2 months from now, or whatever that may be. The first thing I do is, congratulations on your new purchase, assuming they're buying a home or a condo for themselves, or whatever the reason is that they're leaving. And the second thing I'll say is, please refer back to the lease, section such and such, page such and such, article number such and such. Because in my lease, I have what it's going to cost for every single deduction of your security deposit, from your security deposit, so that there's no argument, right? So you signed it. When you signed that lease and you took possession of the property, you signed the pictures of the condition of the property was in each and every single room. There's minimal 2 pictures per room, including the bathrooms and kitchens. And then, so you're acknowledging that's the condition the apartment was in when you took it. Now, this is what I expect back. So if I got to go in and, take apart an entire stove because you lived there for 10 years and never cleaned the stove, that's, that there's a charge for that. Now, I have those charges itemized in the lease. And I tell you to refer back to the lease. So, if you didn't do it and I charged it, it's not because you were unaware of it, because you signed the lease and I brought it to your attention. Like, please make sure this is done so I don't have to make these deductions from your security deposit.
Right. So when you're buying property, okay, are you going out and are you looking for only foreclosures or handymen, or are you looking for property that is, market ready, market rent right now?
I prefer to buy stuff that's depressed because I can do the work and I know it's done right. Unfortunately, what I find is stuff that's done prior to us purchasing, it looks pretty, but having been in the business since 1989, I could tell if it's cosmetic pretty or if it's actually really done well.
Yep.
For instance, I won't buy, if I walk into a property and it's done already and they used half-inch sheetrock, I won't touch it. What happens is, when tenants leave and you spackle because tenants do what they normally do, and they rightfully should be able to put up pictures and things of that sort. That's nothing abnormal, right? But with half-inch sheetrock, you start to see the waves in it. And, if the studding is not 16 inches centered and they go 18, 19 inches because they want to save 6 or 7 studs per wall, that tells me what else behind that wall is done improperly, right? So I try not to buy anything that someone else has done. However, there are times that I have, but that's because the quality was done, the quality of the work was good.
I think you can find both. I think you can find good products on both sides of that aisle. It's a matter of what you're looking for. And with the experience, like you've talked about, you can kind of see these things. So you can walk into a place and go, oh, they kind of put a Band-Aid over an issue here.
Yeah, it's like I walk into a property and I see somebody that used a 2.5-inch clamshell molding. I'm like, what, are you kidding me? I says, you just spent all this money and you go cheap on that?
Yeah, right.
You go cheap on,
right. So what do you think the best deal you ever bought has been?
Wow. There's been a lot of them. I've been very fortunate. I'll give you one in particular. We bought a vacant lot for $235,000. And we used it as a parking lot for 7 years. We parked, if I remember correctly, about 28 cars at $150 a hit. And we did that for 7 years. And remember that, you're not paying any electric or gas. I paid a kid to go up there and clean the lot twice a week, weed it, rake it. And we sold that for $1.6 million 7 years later.
So you took in $150 a car per month?
Precisely.
Wow. 28 cars?
We had a waiting list every month.
We'll let our listeners do the math on that and see how that was. That sounds like a pretty good one. How about one?
We've been very fortunate. I've got another property. The first property I ever bought was a 2-family property. We paid $72,000, about another $150,000 in renovations over all the years since 1989. And that property now is worth, because of where it's located in downtown Brooklyn, to an end user about $2 million.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah.
And Danny, I'm not a real advocate on vacant land, but that could make me a believer all of a sudden. There's that one.
Yeah. Vacant land is a lot of money to be made in it. You just have to switch your mindset from structural developer or flipper to actual. That's an incredible side of the business.
Yeah. Counting Crows has a song that says they take a vacant land and make it a paved paradise. And that's your typical parking lot, right?
Precisely. Yes.
So it's like the guy who owns a laundromat almost.
Yeah.
So tell us about that 2-flat a little bit more.
So that was the first property I ever bought. We purchased that for $72,000 at the time. If I remember correctly, it was, I know the bank that owned it was Greenpoint Savings Bank, and the asking price was $119,000. The half the block was boarded up. That was in the epidemic of the crack cocaine. time in the city of New York.
Sure.
I call that time, it was the white flight. You know, anybody that was white that could afford to leave was leaving the city to the suburbs. So the city was in dire depression. We had just gotten over the administration of Dinkins and Koch, a lot of corruption. Right before this is, you know, before Giuliani came in, and not that I'm advocating any political side, it's just a reality. That's what happened.
Sure.
Having said that, we purchased the property at $72,000, and I got it at that price because I happened to be walking up the corner. I don't remember why. I see the big sign. I call the realtor, and I'll never forget his name. His name is Steven Sirota, and he says to me, "I can't get you in. I could have sold this property 10, 20 times over. Tenants won't let me in." So I said, "So if I get in and look at it, can I give you an offer?" He says, "Yeah, but you're not going to get in." I said, "I'll call you back." So now I grew up in that neighborhood, and I have my store down the corner. My father has a deli across the street. So I just knocked on the door. They knew who we were. They said, "Yo," they used to call me Little Danny back then because my father's also named Danny. They said, "Come in, Little Danny." So I come in. They show both tenants show me everything that's wrong with the building. I call him up literally an hour later. I says, "Will you take 72,000?" And he says, "I don't know, it's a little low, but let me check." He calls me up 2 days later. He says they'll take it, yeah. And they held the mortgage, so we put $15,000 down. That was including our closing costs. We renovated the property, you know, every time the tenants left. That property probably gives us a month now about $7,000 a month, and it's been paid for God knows how many years.
You know, isn't it interesting? You find a deal like that, you get a great price, and then they hold the mortgage. So, you know, I'm an advocate that, you know, if you can get terms and you can get great terms and you can buy something creatively where, you know, it's no money out of pocket or they're holding the mortgage or something to that effect, take the deal, even if you're paying a little bit more, right? But take the deal because terms talk about it so much. Are you finding any deals today in the light of the way the economy is and the way the world is today, any term deals? And let me go forward and say, in the next 30, 60, 90 days, what do you project that we're going to see in the ability to buy creative deals like that again?
So that's one of the things we're thinking about. That's a question. That's a twofold question. The reason we've gotten so many deals at one point, like in 2016 or the 2017, we had 190 closings in 1 year. But we go in very aggressive. There's a value for us to buy your property. There's a value to the seller because we go in with no inspections and we close as soon as title's done. And it's always a cash deal, right?
Yep.
We're not telling them we got to wait to get a mortgage. You know, yeah, you could go with person A, which is going to give you $30,000 more, but I don't know if you're going to close. You go with us, this is our number, but we close. And here's proof to our reputation, right?
Right.
So there's a value to that.
Big value.
Having said that, we haven't been practicing as far as purchasing with terms because the market is very aggressive up until a couple of months ago with other people like myself, right? So we're competing against other investors, and how do we distinguish ourselves? Is by saying, we don't need terms. You don't have to wait for your money. You know, here's a check right now.
Sure.
Okay. Now this is going to be turning around. A lot of these investors are weeding out, and I'm seeing it already because my competition is starting to call me to ask me if I buy their property. I suspect 90 days from now, it's going to be worse. There's going to be less competition, which means there's going to be more inventory, and the holders of that inventory are going to be more susceptible to negotiating a deal with terms.
Yep.
And I will take advantage of that, yes, if I can.
So I agree with what you're saying. I believe that over the next few months, we're going to start to see some creative deals. I've been watching a lot of property online, and I'm seeing these things, the days are clicking up, right? These sellers got the property on the market longer. I'm watching prices come down. I've been watching one house in particular, and 2,400 square foot ranch. And it started out, it was $279 2 months ago. So it's been on the market. I started watching it 2 months ago, but it's been on the market about 92 days now. It's gone from 279. It's down to 240 this morning. Okay. And that's like 4 different price drops. So I'm watching this thing and I'm thinking to myself, boy, if this thing gets to 2.25, I might approach the seller and say, hey, listen, hold the paper. I'll give you 230 for it. So, I think that we'll be able to see the opportunities show up where we'll get seller to hold financing or seller to participate in the financing so that you can buy the deal, right?
Listen, the other thing is if you're selling, I mean, I would also consider selling with financing if you have no mortgage on the property or if the down payment is going to cover the existing mortgage. Because
Right.
I've done that with land where I've made land into a cash cow, a cash flow cow, where let's say we paid $5,000 for the lot and the person's willing to pay me the 15, but they only have $5,000 to spend. I says, give me the 5,000 as a down payment. I'll hold the mortgage for 7 years on that 10,000 at 11% interest.
Yeah.
So it's a win-win in my, selling as a seller to a buyer with financing, as long as what you're financing is your profit money, right? Because now you're getting 11%. If they don't pay you the property, you take it back, and now you have a property that you collected a mortgage on, and the down payment actually essentially made a zero money, your own money into the property. So it's a win-win all the way around. So on both sides, I would consider it.
Think we've all had those properties too that we've sold on contract to somebody. We've gotten a 10% down payment, right? So you might take $25,000 from somebody on a property and they default a year or 2 years down the road, and you take the property back, you sell it again. I know I've got a couple deals myself that I've resold 2 or 3 times. And, you kind of hate doing it, but if people are going to default,
listen,
they're going to default.
I got to tell you the truth. There were people on my land contracts. I had about 15 people that haven't been paying for a couple of years. But to be honest with you, I was so busy and the numbers were so small, it wasn't worth my attention, right? I mean, not that I'm tooting my own home, but that's the reality. But now that we've been home and I've caught up on everything because of the pandemic, I've reached out to all of them, and I actually got 4 of them to pay me in full. I discounted the number, taking into effect that the property value is going to probably be going down because of this pandemic. Some of them, actually 4 more, have said to me, can I just sign you back the deed over? And I said, absolutely. I just sent it over. So, the main thing is communicating. Whether you're the person that owes the money or you're the person who's receiving the amount owed. If everyone's communicating, there's always a deal to be worked out or an amicable resolution without getting attorneys involved.
And one of the things today is if you're in a position where you don't need to sell, don't sell. Just sit, because this is going to come back, right? This is not your typical type of recession that we've gone into here. This is, something out of the norm, and this is going to change. I don't think we're going to see it change quickly, but it's certainly not going to be as long as the last recession that we've had.
Mike, I gotta tell you, in this particular situation, I'm not sure. This is one of the few times that I gotta tell you. So what we did was we've been preparing for a recession for the last 2 years.
Okay.
I sold off essentially all my lowest performing properties to generate a lot of cash and get ready to jump back in when the recession hit at a lower price point. Did I suspect that we were going to have a recession because of a pandemic? Absolutely not. Mm-hmm. But if you look at the history of our economy, and if you look at the history of our economy going back to 1901, all the signs were there. It doesn't matter who the president may have been or would be. It's just a reality. So we prepared for a recession. But we didn't prepare for a recession of this sort that was imposed upon us now. So it's going to be an exciting ride, roller coaster ride, figuring out and navigating through these landmines.
So what are your plans going forward? If you had to project now for the next 6, 12, 18 months, what are you doing as a business owner and as an investor moving forward?
So we've done, essentially what we've been doing is shoring up everything in the back office shoring up everything in reference to the properties that we did decide to keep, uh, and making sure that that was being run so well that when we got back into the flipping side because of the recession opportunities, that we didn't have to concern ourselves with the cash flow side, right? Because it
Sure.
was well run, it was organized, everything's been running extremely well. We have taken advantage of a couple of deals, but when I do put in offers now, I'm coming in at about 20 to 30% less than I would have if we weren't in a pandemic. Because I don't know where this pandemic, how this is going to lay across. Maybe the numbers go up, I don't know. But if the numbers come down, I'm prepared. And if we don't get the deal, I'm okay with that too. You know, it's all a matter of numbers. You know, you put in 100 offers, and if we get 10 of them, I'm extremely happy with it.
Yeah.
So I don't fall in love with anything. It's all about the numbers.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a smart real estate investor, right? Don't get married to the deal.
Yeah,
The first guy that gets married to the deal is the one that loses, you know?
that's right.
And I always tell my coaching clients, I say, don't get emotionally involved. Keep your emotions out of it. You know, get emotional with your wife, get emotional with your girlfriend, but don't get emotionally involved with real estate because it's not worth it, because there are so many deals out there, right?
Yeah,
So
it's gonna come. It's just
yeah.
the patience.
So, Danny, thanks for your time. Tell our listeners how they can get a hold of you if they want to talk to you a little bit further. Or,
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Mike, you know, when you asked me to be honest, I was excited because now I'm at a point in my life that I could actually pay it forward. You know, my kids are all done with school. I got one left, but you know, they're all graduating with no student loans. My wife and I started to travel. So, you know, at my age, and we're willing to, now it's just a matter of paying it back forward, right?
right.
So I don't mind giving away any of this advice for free. I actually enjoy it. They could follow me on my Instagram channel, which is USA underscore land underscore ventures. You could find me on my YouTube channel, USA Land Ventures. And you could find me also under that, USA Land Ventures, on Facebook. We put a lot of articles on Facebook because that's a platform that allows you to do it, articles that are interesting to the business itself, that I actually just share from other publications.
Sure.
We do a lot of videos where we're giving free advice, or when I'm walking a property. I just did one where we just put an offer in and may go through actually on a house that was burnt out in New Jersey. And we walked you through the entire property and how I determined my numbers. So again, I try to keep them at under 4 minutes. And if they have any questions, they can then reach out to me through those platforms as well.
All right, great. And we'll have your information posted on our website. So, Danny, it's been a pleasure today. Good luck to you and your family. I hope you guys stay healthy and safe throughout this and beyond also. And you know, we'll be in touch, but good investing, buddy.
Likewise, Mike. Thank you for having us on. Bye-bye.
You bet.